Thank you very much, Reverend Mulenga, for the prayer. Colleagues, this afternoon, our presenter is Professor Klaus Fielder. Professor Klaus Fiedler has spent much of his time in Malawi, staying on ZTC campus. So he is one of us here at Zomba Theological College. He taught at Chancellor College for 15 years, and then he went to Mzuzu University, where he taught for 12 years, and he's now 1 year retired. He has published numerous books, numerous articles, and he's a well-known scholar. So this afternoon, we are privileged to have this hero in the academia, and we are ready to receive him and make his presentation. May I ask him to come and make his presentation, and as he comes, a round of applause for him.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Not that I'm a stranger here, and I'm happy to present. And I want to present something which is based on my experience, observation, and the work I've done here in this beautiful country. The topic is creating a university research culture, creating a university research culture, and how to succeed. In Germany, when a professor is called to the job, she will be told to represent the subject in research and teaching. Not teach a bit and research as well, no, research and teaching. And I remember Professor Lanzen-Hango, he's told us in a meeting, it is research that makes the university to be a university. Without research, it is just a glorified secondary school. Zomba Theological College is on the way to the university, so there is a crossroad. Don't go the secondary school way, but go the university way. And research is what gives you the direction. If you neglect research, that's a big loss for Malawi. In UNIMA, when I joined in 1992, there were 3 PhDs for the whole university so far, in 30 years or whatever. The idea was, you do your diploma here, you do your BA, and if you are good in that, we send you abroad for an MA and for a PhD maybe as well. That's fine. You can come back with a fridge and a few other assets, but all the work you do is exported to America, Australia, and a few other places in the world. So research is what should be done here and not over there somewhere. And indeed, it can be done. When I joined the Department of Theology and Religious Studies at Chanco, the department had 1 MA to its credit, Augustin Musupole, and 1 PhD in the making. 8 years later, we had 8 PhDs done, and we were the leaders in the whole university, more than the rest of the university. So theology is the pioneer. It can be done. And in Mzuzu, the same. David Mpande was a lecturer at Mzuzu University from the beginning in 1999. He got his PhD here at Chancellor College. And TRS was a service department of education. 6 years later or so, he had convinced the authorities not only to approve a full BA, 1 subject degree, but also to agree to a MA and PhD at the same time. And now the department has 10 PhDs, the only ones of the whole university so far. It can be done if you do it. If you wait for the right conditions to prevail, you will be waiting 1 year and another and maybe 10. And that's a waste of time. We have hoped to have 6 more PhDs at the next graduation, and that's even better than 10. So we are really the ones who do it. And this is the crucial idea about research, and to succeed is to do it. There is a precious base, and this is undergraduate research. If you are very serious about research, you take the undergraduate research very seriously. When I came into Kampala to study at Makerere University, I was fascinated by the idea that a student in second, third year could go home or for the long holiday and come back with a piece of research. In Hamburg, where I got my kind of diploma equivalent, we never had this idea. Yes, we wrote a dissertation at the end, quite solid, I wrote about the theology of Rudolf Blutmann, but that we can do research, a little research as beginners, that was strange to me. And I learned that in Kampala, and I'm very happy that I got that idea. So the undergraduate research is the solid base, and it's a precious base. Of course, Zomba College, for example, since 30 years or so has been doing diploma dissertations, later Bachelor of Divinity dissertations, and this is precious because some of them you better hide. I remember 2 dissertations in Mzuzu. I don't want to show them to anyone, but most of the dissertations are quite good, and some of them are excellent. So they are a solid base of research. I have a database with about 300 of these collected undergraduate and maybe MA modules and so on. There's none of them from Zomba College. If I extrapolate what I have, I think there should be at least 1,000 undergraduate dissertations in Malawi, many of them with a contribution to knowledge, because research is making a contribution of the knowledge. Of course, undergraduate diploma papers can also keep exercises in academic work from the library and so on. Nothing wrong with that. But many of them have primary research material. And this is something which should be much appreciated and which is the base. And therefore, I propose, number one, if you want to succeed as a research university, make the research a solid component of undergraduate teaching. Make research a solid component of undergraduate teaching. Number one, every program must have a research component compulsory, not as an elective. Because if it is an elective, maybe most of people don't take it. But research at the bachelor level must be compulsory for everyone. Because these dissertations, they achieve training in research skills and training in writing skills and also training in presentation skills. So undergraduate dissertations bring training in research skills, writing skills, and in presentation skills. These skills are all required for postgraduate research, so train them in undergraduate work. Second, each dissertation must be continuously supervised. Not write the dissertation and then bring it for examination. No, supervision is a continual process. And therefore, the supervisor must be careful not only to correct and examine the dissertation at the end, but to develop the student's potential. Some students have little potential and you are happy to get them through. And if it is a pass at 55, that's fine. But others have a potential to develop further. And this is the task of the supervisor to develop. And it's important for the supervisor not to be slow, because a student must never complain, my supervisor is slow. Yeah? The supervisor must be excelling in cooperation. Dissertations must be written to academic standards as prescribed in the department, in the university. The dissertations then must be presented. The Department of Education at Missouri wanted to abolish the presentation, but all the committees said, no, no, the dissertation must be presented because that brings a focus to the work of the students. Yeah? It's not that they can improve much by the presentation, but they will be better focused. And I have had that experience myself. Then, number 5, carefully preserve each dissertation on paper and electronically. I asked for a university, can I have your dissertations? We don't have them. So over about 10 years, they had dissertations and they can't find them. I have about 8 of them, but that's not all of it. Yeah. So preserve your dissertations carefully in a kind of archive and electronically. I also advise, number 6, to take care on the selection of topics. Some students know exactly what they want to do, and it's a good idea. But the college should also present potential topics to not just to have a student doing a degree, but also to say, let the student who does this degree together with others develop a topic, which I call clusters of topics. For example, biographies or histories of parishes. Okay, I'm a historian, yeah. Maybe applied biblical studies. Not just to say, what do you want to do? Okay, I want to do the church and gender-based violence. Okay, do it. But also offer something in practical clusters, yeah, to enhance the research ideas, especially of the lecturers. I have learned so much from my students, undergraduate and postgraduate, because they write on topics which I'm interested in. And this is always a good combination if the student is supervised by a lecturer who is interested not only to get the student through, but also in that topic the student is working on. You should avoid topics which don't yield much, like the church and whatever, labor laws. And then in the end, I asked, what is this to do with theological religious studies? It's in liberation theology. Of course, everyone must be liberated, yeah? But that doesn't help to develop the research interests of a university. The research interests are developed by guidance into certain clusters and topics so that in the end, there is a cumulative base of research. There should be a balance between empirical research and desk research. There's nothing wrong doing research on the theology of St. Augustine. Or I would propose St. Anthony, the Desert Father. But that should only be part of it. There should be a large element of empirical research. Number 7, when you have selected the topics well, write the bachelor's dissertations in monograph style. My supervisor, Louis Pirouet, told me right at the beginning, Klaus, you write a dissertation, but in reality, you write a book. So write your dissertation as a book. And if it is a bachelor, maybe as a booklet, but not as a paper like it is done in social science, where they say introduction, literature review, methods, data collected, data interpretation, analysis, and 6 summary, conclusion, and recommendations. This is a good idea to push the readers off, because why should they read literature review, methods, etc.? Yeah? So write it as a book. Put all the important academic things in chapter 1. Then chapter 2 can have something like a background or history or whatever to introduce the topic. And then from chapter 3, you are alone with your research. And there must be substantive topics. And this applies to MA and PhD as well. Yeah? I was once given an MA to look at from Malawi Institute of Management. 5 chapters, and the research came in chapter 4, after about 70% of the paper had been used already. And then comes bibliography, etc. So the research was a little bit, and all the rest was dealing with those authors and those authors. So I said, well, I don't think that's what I understand to be research. So make it, even if it is a BA, a booklet, a real book, a contribution to knowledge. Often students just say, okay, I'll make a questionnaire. Yes, questionnaires can be useful. But I remember when I started my PhD, the first thing was to send my supervisor a questionnaire. And she sent it back to me, said, yes, you can use it if you apply it carefully in person. I understood and threw it away because it was not a good thing. Questionnaires are very dangerous because of 2 reasons. One, people understand it to be an exercise in examination. Not to tell what I know, but what does the teacher want to know. And second, questionnaires, by definition, do not write about facts, but about opinions. That's quite fine if it is a questionnaire how to elect the next president in America. But if you write about theology, most of the questionnaires are pretty useless. Finally, make sure that the referencing in the thesis is carefully done and according to standard. I know there are different styles of referencing, and I'm very partisan. I do not want anyone to write APA style, which is bracket references. Why? Because if I read a bracket reference, Miller 1995A, do I remember anything? And do I go to the bibliography at the end and say, Miller 1995, what's it, 95A or B, or, okay, 1995, and then I look it up? I don't. And I've asked so many people, do you look them up? No, they don't. I want you to take the sources very seriously. And if I want to know what Miller 1995 wrote, I just look into the footnote. And therefore we demand, and I demand, footnote style. And here I recommend what we call Chicago Mzuni style. Chicago style is a footnote style, middle of the road, and we made some tiny local additions. Yeah? And this is well represented in this booklet. I brought 7 of these today for sale, 2,000 kwacha each, and make sure that the students and the lecturers from the beginning learn this style, especially what is written here in the middle of the book, and apply it. Because I have said so many students, including MA and PhD students, who are very shy to use the proper referencing. And it's not the supervisor's job to make the references correct. The supervisor is supposed to correct the one mistake where the student really wasn't sure. That's fine. But if the references are not done well, it's not the supervisor's job to do them. So apply a proper style, and I can only recommend this style here. Yeah? Supervision must be taken very seriously. Supervision must be continuous, not examination at the end, but continuously working with the student. It must be frequent. One student came to me, we arranged what to do, and then he came to me again after a long time, said, I have to present tomorrow the paper. No, not tomorrow, day after tomorrow, my paper. Can you check it? I said, no, I won't. You didn't come to work with me, so I'm not going to say yes or no to it. Present it to the public. Yeah? Now, I repeat, the supervisor's task is not only to supervise the student in terms of correcting and examining, but also to develop the potential. Yeah? Here I may take an example from my master's work, and this was the lady who is now my wife. At that time, she was my student, and we were not related, and she would still obey me. She did her research on Baptist women in southern Malawi, and she wrote about the position in church, about Mvano, or they call it Umodzi there, And I had the idea, I think she might get an MA for that. I think she would have got one. But I saw she had more potential, so I said, you must add one chapter on marriage, because for women's position in the church, marriage is a very important issue. She did that. Yeah. And then I said, well, she still had potential. Why not write a chapter on preparation for marriage? Go to initiation rituals. And she went to the field and said, they don't have these things. Well, I wasn't so convinced. 6 weeks later, she came and said, yeah, they have invited me for initiation for girls. So she attended 3 days, full time, yeah, very tired at the end. And she was allowed to write down each and every teaching. Not make any photographs, but the teaching. So she has now a book out of which tells all these teachings. Unique, there is no such a thing. So develop a student's potential. For some, you must say, okay, I think you have done your job, get it through. Others, you must say, that's not enough. You have more potential. You would pass, but you must develop further. Yeah? And when the co-supervisor asked me, is she PhD material, Isabel Piri? I said yes, and she has proven to be. So develop the student's potential in order to make research a reality in the university. Avoid dross. I saw a dissertation, 100 pages for an MA, which is not much, an MDiv, and I think the topic was only reached at page 50. The rest was introduction of Malawi and David Livingstone, etc., all things we know. This is a wrong assignment. Avoid the generalities, avoid the material which is off the topic, avoid unspecified material. And the good thing with supervision is the supervisor will gain knowledge. It's not a bad task which you have to do in addition to all your teaching and marking, but you gain knowledge. So many things I've learned from my subject in my field, I've learned from my students. And I'm so grateful that I did this. And don't get bogged down with technicalities. In chapter 1, I wrote 2 PhDs, very well internationally acknowledged. I never had a proposal. I never wrote a chapter 1. I just did the work. So then the BA undergraduate work must be presented in regular research seminars. I admire history seminar. They had about 190 seminars in sequence. No, 190 papers in seminars. So over 10 years, really a long, more than 10 years, a long history of papers presented. Yeah. And they are all preserved. Not much used, unfortunately. So therefore, preserve the undergraduate research, of course, postgraduate as well. And here I propose that a university, first of all, establishes an archive. That means where these papers, these research, whatever the research is, on whatever level, is faithfully preserved, catalogued, like in any good archive. Yeah? Second, the university must establish a database, or whatever you call it, electronic granary, where all these papers are now preserved as well in electronic form, if they is available. In these days it is. The third step I propose is that you create a research registry, where all the research, not the full text, but the topics, the date, the bibliographical details are contained, so that people can order it, can refer to it, a research registry. And here, let me dream a bit. This could start with the many dissertations at Sommerfeld College. There might be 200-300 or so. Yeah? But then it could be extended into a research registry, maybe to include Leonard Kamungu, Chancellor College or St. Peter's, and maybe the whole of Malawi, to make a registry for all research on any level. And then the next step would be that this research would be made available. Of course, there's no point in printing it all, but if you have a full registry, then you can make it accessible to those who want it and who need it. The next step, number 4, is to make this research available for Malawi and the world. There should be a full registry and publications from it, maybe a database of what is available, or making little books like the bibliography we have made in 1998. Religion in Malawi, a bibliography. And then make sure that the students use the existing research to build on. Sometimes I see a student presenting something, and then I say, hey, in this book and that dissertation, well, I didn't know about it. That's not research. Research means you must know what is there. Yeah, that's the point of having a literature review, that you are forced to find out what is there. But keep track on what is there and use it as well. There might be some dissertations which qualify for higher levels of publication, like little books and so on. I had one at Chancellor College, Stefan Höschele, and one from Livingstonia, Kelly Bwalia, on the life of Dr. Wyson Moses Kauzobafa Jele, missionary to Zambia. It's a little book now. Yeah? Unfortunately, I don't have a copy here. Or maybe an article can be written, maybe a contribution to a dictionary of African Christian biography, if the topic is appropriate, and even a contribution to Wikipedia. When I mentioned that in Commerce, I was asked, we can't rely on Wikipedia. No, my argument is not that you should copy from them, but that you should contribute to them. Because people, if they want to know about Dr. Laws of Livingstonia, they punch it in the computer, what comes up? Wikipedia. Now, it's a difference if there's a lot of nonsense or maybe poverty, or if there is a proper article on Dr. Laws of Livingstonia. And that applies to everyone. And I think Zomba College has not made any contributions to this. Dr. Kamkwani, he should deserve an article in Wikipedia and in the Dictionary of African Christian Biography. And there are others like him. Yeah? The Dictionary of African Christian Biography only takes people of biographies of deceased people, or they are so old that they are no longer active in life. So don't write an article about Klaus Fielder, they won't take it. I may have reached the age, but I'm still active. So develop the research and make use of it to produce more. Okay, this is my presentation on the undergraduate research. And from this undergraduate research, including any other research, make a research-based curriculum. This is my point number 3, make a research-based curriculum. I saw a few syllabi at Mzumi, not of our department, as a member of the Forces Committee. They didn't have a single book from Malawi in the whole syllabus, teaching whatever. I complained about it. Don't you have anything? And if there's nothing, that's a sign of poverty, because the university is about research, not about using all these nice books from America. Nothing against America, yeah? But we are supposed to produce our own. So the curriculum should be based on our research, not on research of some great people in America or Australia, maybe even in Germany. No, it must be based on our research, and whatever there is must be integrated into the curriculum. Research must be included as a task in every curriculum, like something students must do, but it must also include it in the learning curriculum. Use this, use that, etc. Recommending reading, sometimes even required reading. A syllabus may even contain articles, PhDs, MAs, research results, instead of the beautiful textbooks from abroad. The aim is to produce each syllabus as thoroughly Malawian as possible. As thoroughly Malawian as possible. And this is important. Therefore, use existing textbooks like Mawerenga, Systematic Theology. That should be compulsory reading. Kenneth Ross and Klaus Fiedler, we have written a book on Malawi church history. Not yet available, but it's already to the printer. That should be the textbook for Malawi church history. And maybe Van Breugel, Chewa Traditional Religion, is a better compulsory textbook than John Mbiti's. Of course, John Mbiti, my professor, my lecturer, he is better than Breugel, but Breugel is local. Yeah, he writes about us here, whereas John Mbiti writes about Africa in general. So make John Mbiti recommended reading and Breugel compulsory reading. Research, the curriculum must be research-based. And the staff must supervise regularly. I've talked about that. Make sure that you learn from your students. And I'm so grateful from all the things I've learned from my students. When Mark Thiessen decided to write the history of the Churches of Christ in Malawi, I had no idea who the Churches of Christ were, except the name. So I asked him, give me some volumes of church history in America, so that I understand the concepts and so on. And this helped me, of course, and now I have learned a lot from him. The book will be out in a few weeks. Then the third step in research is that you develop your staff. Every university must develop the staff, and research is a major component. Number one, get the next degree. It's amazing that some staff teach for years with an MA without ever going for PhD. Maybe they are waiting for the scholarship in Australia, but why not do a PhD here? In Missouri, almost all staff have local PhDs and MAs. I think that's right. Or you can even go to South Africa. Two of our staff, they wrote a PhD with Bloemfontein, University of the Free State, but they never went there. Yeah, so they didn't spend 3 years in South Africa and do a month research in Malawi, but they only went there for receiving the degree. I examined one dissertation where the student stayed 3 years in South Africa and came for 3 months to Malawi to do research. The results were poor, very poor. Yeah, and I wrote in the end, please don't bring that research to Malawi. Yeah? Or the 1-year degree in Edinburgh for an MTH. What the professors there may find interesting, we know that already when the thesis comes here. Or sometimes I get a request, please send me books for my PhD research. Well, that's not PhD research. Research is not on books, unless you study the great theologians and so on. But research on Malawi is on Malawi. And the books can be used as a sideline, background, context, but not for your research. So, get the next degree. And the institution should make sure that the lecturers get on with their degrees. Second, staff must supervise regularly because then they learn. Staff learns from the students. They learn supervision skills, research skills, and knowledge, plenty of knowledge. 3, publish your staff's research. It's amazing how many lecturers lecture for years and their own PhD is not available. Yeah? This is not good. Publish immediately after you have done your research. And that depends. If it is an MA with limited possibilities, maybe you make an article of it. But it must be published, it must be available. So make it a book, a booklet, maybe an essay, but publish. Entry into the Dictionary of African Christian Bibliography, Wikipedia, etc. Publish your research and make it accessible for your students and the rest of the world. make sure that everything is up to standard in terms of referencing. Then, number 4, collect articles to be published, or published articles. Because some lecturers are requested, can you write an article for the Journal of the Study of History in Southern Africa? That's a high quality journal and you get points in your promotion. But what do your students have for it? Nothing. It's published for them in nowhere. So therefore, my idea is when you have written 6, 8 or so articles, put them together in a book and publish that book for easy access in Malawi. And if the articles are not enough, you can add 1 or 2 not yet published, so that makes it a nice rounded book. Jonathan Koma taught me that skill, and Ken Ross started it actually, and we have a reprint of some articles there from long ago. Finally, promote your research to the public. Establish a simple web presence, simple because everyone must be able to deal with it. Maintain and update your web presence and present for each staff member on the web what research they have done. Because when those people who say, we want to rank the universities between 1 and 999 in Africa, they don't come to check the university, they go to the website and they look, how much research have they done? Nothing. How much, what do they teach? And then you get position number 871. Why not put all the research you have done on the web? And then anyone who crawls along to assess you will say, hey, Professor Ross, he has done 7 books, editor of, and so on and so on. Hey, this is a productive university. And this one and that one, okay, your ranking is no longer 891, but 525. So put your knowledge, your research on the web. And keep a list of all the research that has been done, which is available on the web as well. Yeah. And then there should be a link to your archive and so on, so that anyone who comes from outside and says, I want to see how much research they are doing, said, okay, it's all there. That's what we need to do. So this is all about undergraduate research, but you should also make a very solid step to develop a master's program. An MA can be part-time or full-time. Of course, part-time is not the right word, it's research only, and full-time is not right either because it is partly taught. Both are possibilities. And in the long run, in my opinion, a college should have them both. But I propose to start with the part-time, research-based, which is actually not part-time, but spare time. This allows for a humble beginning. You need 1 student and 3 lecturers, one of them having a PhD. And then you can have a program and you can start. If you wait for the 5 professors to be there and so on, you will never get anywhere. Nche must approve in the end. So why not take an approved syllabus, maybe Mzuni, and adjust it to your own demands? I hear again about complaints about these part-time programs that they take so long. Yes, the supervisors don't read the text, and in America, a MA is much faster. Of course, in America, it's full-time and very expensive. So here, the remedy is not to be like in America, but to be quick. Supervisors must not delay the students, but promote them, develop them, and read the text quickly. I remember once Isabel Pieri told me, my supervisor, Professor, I think De Gruchy, yes. Yeah, I gave him a chapter in the week, and on Sunday we meet in church and said, come tomorrow to my office to receive your chapter. I don't know if he did this every time, but she was very proud of a professor like that who reading. You may not be able to read every chapter over the weekend, but it's not that difficult. So read your students' work quickly. Don't let them complain. I'm in favor of the part-time program because even in the full-time program, students don't work full-time. Of course, they are taught in the first 2 semesters, but then the same problem comes. When students ask me, how long does it take? I always answer, how long do you take? I will not delay a student. If a student wants to finish in 2 years, I'm with him. And if I delay him much, it's a week or a month. But otherwise, if a student is willing to work, finish in 2 years, I am with him and he will not be delayed. So promote the student's work. Now, having established this MA program, you must also think about PhD. It's not something to start right at the beginning, but don't wait too long. First of all, get as many PhDs as possible on your staff. Maybe don't wait for them to go abroad, stay 3-4 years in America, come back with a degree or may not come back. Most of them come back indeed. No, let them do it part-time. The PhD in most countries is written part-time. I know there are some full-time PhDs in America, but they're not many. I wrote my PhD part-time. I got 3 months of study leave, so on, but it's part-time, yeah, where I work. So include as many PhDs as possible, and if lecturers don't have the PhDs, let them get there as soon as possible. And be courageous and have some ideas to develop. Then publish all PhDs on various levels. It is not acceptable that the lecturer has a PhD and it is not accessible to students and the world, because a PhD is granted only if you make a contribution to knowledge. And you cannot hide 3 years' work if you put it on a shelf somewhere in a remote library and say, oh, I got my degree, it's fine. No, you make a contribution to knowledge for the world. It must be published to the world. Yeah? We try this, but there can be still improvements. Then integrate your PhD research results into the curriculum. And remember, a PhD is not the concluding achievement. For some it is indeed. I published a book by Fritz Haus, who got his PhD. He was a pastor all his life at the age of 80. That's a crowning glory. And 2 years later, he was translated to the real glory afterwards. That's fine. I don't expect anything more from him. But if you do your PhD at 29 or 41, I expect that this is the beginning of more to be done in research, in supervision, and in publication. Finally, I want the university, every university, to establish a research department. This must not be at the first day a fully fledged department, but it must be there. And there must be someone who loves it, who dedicates time to it, said, I want to develop it. And to have such a department is a matter of foresight. You can develop the future. The reward for the institution will be considerable, though not necessarily within the year. The responsibilities of a research department could be, number one, control and develop further undergraduate research. There is already a lot, so add to it. Second, secure and archive all research that has been done, from undergraduate to postgraduate level. Third, establish a research registry, where everything can be found on a computer, accessible to the world. Make the material, number four, in the research registry available to all scholars by different methods. 5, this research registry, starting at one institution, let's say Sommerfeld College, can be extended cooperationally or whatever to other institutions. So gradually it could become a national research registry, and Sommer could be the hub of it, the center. Number 6, promote the publication of all research results from Sommerfeld College in all possible ways. This could be, for example, in connection with Cacere, as a kind of Cacere Zomba Theological College branch. A little branch of Cacere, which is possibly more or less managed independently, but as part of Cacere, where you say, okay, in this branch, we want to concentrate on things done here or maybe needed for us. So there is, you can tell your students, look at this, number 1, 2, 3, yeah? And that can be big books and small ones. Number 7, promote the research development of all members of staff. This is the task of the research coordinator, research department. And 8, establish a Zomba Theological Research website, either standalone or as part of the Zomba Theological College website. Then, when you've done all this, promote and organize the acquisition of Malawian books for the library. It's amazing when you go to Malawian institutions, universities, and you look for Malawian books. Some have them, but others, it seems they come from another planet. They buy books in America and anywhere, and they pay heavily for it. But then the local books said, oh, well, yeah, sure, we should have them. Yeah, sure, where are they? This is not right, yeah? There should be someone sitting at the center and saying, make sure that for our research department, really the books are there. Each and every book published in Malawi, in our field, of course, must be available at this research center so that people come to our university and say, we don't need to go anywhere else. The books on Malawi are all here. Of course, there are a few exceptions, but this should be the aim of the research department. So establish a library presence which is complete in the subject we are studying. So I would like to have a research department which controls the undergraduate research, establishes a research registry, makes it accessible, cooperating with others, and make a own publications series, maybe as the ZTC branch of Cacere or whatever. Yeah? I think you have listened to me, and I hope you have felt that I speak from my heart. This is something I love dearly, I've devoted my time to, and I want to cooperate with all of you to do more, because research builds a university. And what we need in Malawi is good universities. Well, forget about all the other disciplines. What we need in Malawi is good theological departments of universities, or good theological universities. And they should be research-based, comprehensive, and they should be done with love and engagement. If you wait for the big project to be approved, you may wait beyond your lifetime. But if you want to do it, you can start tomorrow. And there is so much to do, even with little funds. If you have ideas, if you are engaged in it, if you love it. And I love to make a university research-based and succeed in it. Thank you for listening.